Hello, folks and fellow patriots. This is Constitution Kelly coming to you from Indiana. And before I kick off my first broadcast, I'd like to take this time to introduce myself a little bit. Right now, I'm trying to get my degree in secondary education at Ivy Tech in Kokomo. I'm a Christian. I'm 21 years old, and most of my friends would probably describe me as a bit eccentric. I don't know if you can feel me there. I'm also in the process of getting my name on the ballot for City Council. I align, for the most part, politically with Dr. Ron Paul and the Libertarian Party. I believe that our government is way too big. We need lower taxes. Our money system is fraudulent. And we really need to just educate our people, hence me being in secondary education. Our government doesn't represent us anymore, and that's not how it should be. So what am I doing here? What's this broadcast about? I'm here to provide you with information, to get you fired up about freedom, and if need be, to represent you, the people, properly. Okay, so what's my motivation? It's not greed, power, or political clout, but freedom, our future security, and our children's future security. Knowing how corrupt our government isn't something you keep to yourself, especially when it affects everyone. And that's why this is important. And so now we're going to kick off my first broadcast, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm basically going to be covering what it is a central bank does and about our own central bank. Now, I got to share this with you. This is really interesting to me. I'm at the local campus, okay, and I'm researching, trying to find my plan for a Freedom President by Ron Paul. It's a document. And I came across this. www.ronpaulforpresident2008.com/news/ was restricted. Reason: the WebSense category malicious website is filtered. Right there at the top. And I don't know if you can see that real well. Okay. But while I was browsing Ron Paul websites, I found, I believe it was on campaignforliberty.com, but where you can get this specifically, I'll tell you in a moment, is a book, an e-book called Understanding the Fed. And it's really great. It's at least the first 7 chapters. It's completely free. And the way to get it is you go to ElliottWave.com, ELLIOTTWAVE.com. And you'll be looking for a page that looks a little bit like this bottom part. It's going to have a picture of the book. And it looks like that there, Understanding the Fed. And this here says, how to protect yourself from the common and misleading myths about the U.S. Federal Reserve. And I'll be using this book to help introduce what the Federal Reserve System is. And as you can see, I've got some things highlighted here on the first, at least on the first page. And right. So what this starts off saying. Oh, wait. First of all, the way you can get this book, go to ElliottWave.com. To print it out, I figure your local library, it's about 10 cents a page. So you can do it for, you can get it printed out for $3.50 if it's 10 cents a page. It's 35 pages. Definitely worth the investment. $3.50, cheaper than a pack of cigarettes. The introduction to Chapter 1, Money, Credit, and the Federal Reserve Banking System, is an expert from Conquer the Crash. And what I have highlighted here is that this is a difficult chapter, but if you can assimilate what it says, you will have knowledge of the banking system that not one person in 10,000 has. The origin of intangible money. Okay. Originally, money was a tangible good, freely chosen by society. For millennia, gold or silver provided this function, although sometimes other tangible goods, such as copper, brass, and seashells did. Today, almost all money is intangible. It is not, nor does it even represent, a physical good. How it got that way is a long, complicated, disturbing story, which would take a full book to relate properly. Now, I'm going to try to relate that as properly as possible without taking up a whole book. My broadcast is usually only about 10 minutes long. This is the first one, but I'm trying to keep it within that. So, that brings us to the beginning of the Revolutionary War. It's 1776. We've had instances and stands for our freedom, the Boston Tea Party, our outrage at the Stamp Act, the tarring and feathering of the King's tax collectors. And what goes ridiculously unnoticed is the colony's struggles with Parliament and the Central Bank of England. King George III allowed Parliament to write legislation for the colonies in all matters whatsoever, according to these people. Among these legislations was one outlawing our money supply, requiring us to conform to the Central Bank of England. And yet most of us has never even heard about that. I mean, you know, it stays completely out of topic for the most part. But perhaps it didn't play a big role. And perhaps it did. Because Thomas Jefferson once said, the refusal of King George III to allow the colonies to operate an honest money system, which freed the ordinary man from the clutches of the money manipulation, was probably the prime cause of the Revolution. Okay, so we wanted to get away from the Central Bank of England. So, what is a central bank? A central bank is an institute that produces the currency of an entire nation. A central bank's two powers are to A, control interest rates, and B, to control inflation, aka the money supply. America's own central bank was founded in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act, along with the 16th Amendment, the only one that seems to have had any recorded, complications to it whatsoever. When we had the first 10 and 5 previous to, this one seems to be the only one that's recorded with any complications. 16th Amendment, remember that? We'll cover it in other episodes. And every dollar that the Federal Reserve makes is on loan to us at interest. So naturally, the interest from all our money is debt to the country, which falls back on us with more taxes. So every dollar in your pocket is that dollar plus a percent of that debt. So now the question comes, where does the money come from to pay off that debt? Why? It comes from the Federal Reserve again, increasing our debt. Debt that can never be paid off does equal slavery. The fact is, the Federal Reserve is as Federal Express, commonly used term. Probably most of you have seen the movie. It isn't even a federal institute. The Federal Reserve System is privately owned, makes its own policies, and is under no regulation by the U.S. government. Andrew Jackson ended the second attempt at a Central Bank of America in 1833, and 20 years after the Federal Reserve Act, the gold standard was ended, leaving the control of our currency completely to private corporations. See, and I wish you could see this here. I've got a picture of currency previous to 1933, and it says, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury. Now, of course, everyone wasn't going to go to the Treasury to get their gold if they wanted to exchange a $1 bill. What they would actually do is go to their banks, which would have, not just have gold from the reserve, but could request it. Now, all of our money says that this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, which means that it is backed by absolutely nothing. So yes, our money